Hi, I'm Doug Smith, and welcome to the 22 November edition of Portsmouth This Week. Our topic today is going to be a little bit about the 375th celebration and how we're ending it with our final polar dive. And I've got two experts on that subject here with me today. Gary Gump, who's the vice chair of the 375th Steering Committee. Welcome, Gary.
Good morning.
And Bob Hamilton, who does a little bit of everything in the steering committee, but he's also in charge of our final polar dive, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the program. Personally, I think we've had a very successful year here celebrating our 375th, and I just wondered, I'd like to ask you guys, what were the highlights for you?
Bob?
Well, I think the highlight of the entire year is the videotaping of Jim Garman's lecture for retention for posterity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a service, really, that was done for the town, so that people can go back and look at this.
Right, and the opportunity for people to have that entire collection will be great.
Yeah.
I think that naming him as our town historian and then turning that around in this whole series of videos is a good step towards capturing all of our history for the town.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember the guy who did all those, which is Rich Zalewski, who's our director out there.
Man behind
he's the one that does all the heavy lifting.
This whole program here, right, right behind us.
We should thank him.
I think to address the question you asked about what the highlights were for me, I probably just a couple things. I think that being able to have the Portsmouth Compact, actually to discover it, rediscover it, to bring it down here, have it on display, and actually have the 375-year-old document here on display. I think that was just an unexpected, terrific benefit for this whole thing. And now we know where it's at, and we can do more with it.
That's right. Thanks to John Klimm, our town administrator.
Absolutely, browbeat everybody up there to get it down here. Right.
That was
great.
Then,
I think, like on a personal level, I think probably the two key things for me. One was our trip to England in May. I think while a lot of us got involved in orchestrating the trip, we had no idea it was going to turn out so well, and it was just terrific. I mean, it's still paying dividends.
I understand you had a bar bill that you left over there that we have to go back.
That's
and
right.
pay
Yeah, it's only 375 years old. So we have to go back, and probably the other one, of course, I think. Was the whole gala weekend. I think is an amazing feat. Probably 20 or 25 people working together to pull it together across the town in different venues, and all the community contributing. I mean, those two to me, I think, really made it a fun summer.
I thought that the great thing was the people in Portsmouth. They came out and supported all this stuff. The real highlight for me was, as you say, was that weekend when we had our visitors from New Hampshire, Virginia, and Portsmouth, UK. Over, we made some very nice friends. These people are really great, and they were all very appreciative of our hospitality. And I remember the Lord Mayor of Portsmouth, England, being so impressed that people would come up to her at that reception, for example, and introduce themselves and say, "We're so glad you're here." She thought that was so great, and everybody was so gracious. It was a great introduction to Portsmouth, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing I liked, there are a lot of things I liked about the 375th.
And I've thought of a couple more I want to come back and talk about.
Yeah, I like the idea that we have our own official newspaper, the Newport Daily News. We have our own official vineyard, Greenvale Vineyards.
Here.
Our own official coffee house, Custom Coffee House, now the Public House. I mean, how many towns can say they have their own official vineyard and for their anniversary?
Not many.
So I thought that was so great. What else do you want to add?
I wanted to say that surviving the polar dive on January the 1st, that unintentional total body immersion.
That's because you tripped, as I recall.
It was because I tripped. I had no idea that I was going to get my whole body underwater. Yeah. But in any event, I think that was quite a highlight for me. I never thought that I would do that. And then sitting here right now, anticipating the thrill of a final dive on December 31st, and hoping that I survive that is the other side of the coin. There's a thrill a minute here being on the 375 committee.
And the other thing I have to mention as another highlight, there's so many highlights, I think, over the year, but the parade.
Are you writing these down, Bob?
Yeah, I'm writing them down. Yeah.
The parade was so great. Yeah. George Waterwell and his parade committee guys and gals, they did such a great job. Yeah. And it was just so nice seeing people out in the streets watching this thing, having a good time.
It was great.
It kind of made a lot of this effort really worthwhile. And we got to thank our all of our steering committee
Absolutely.
members for all the hard work.
Well, and all, I mean, the fire department, the police department, everybody. I mean, like the fire department came down with their ladder truck to take a picture of the heart that we had down at the park
and
down
the
there.
police
I mean,
department were
yeah.
there for our
Yeah.
parade and everything.
Right, yeah.
It was great.
You know, the parade, you looked at that as, you know, if you were up there at the school and all these floats coming in and marching bands and just individuals, and you say, you know, how is this going to work, you know?
And it did.
But it did. It worked perfectly.
It was,
I mean,
yeah.
everything went off
Absolutely.
right on time.
Absolutely.
No delays.
You know, we've been raising money throughout the year, and we're going to end the year. We'll get to the polar dive in a second, but we're going to end the year with a final fundraising project. I'm going to ask the rhetorical question since we all know the answer, but what are these funds for? Why are we raising money?
Well, just to paraphrase what you said 1,000 times already, it's to provide, specifically to provide funds to the Portsmouth Public Library to create a Portsmouth History Center in the library, to have an ongoing result of our 375th celebration, which is a location where people can discover or rediscover Portsmouth history.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that the steering committee basically decided on this very early on in our meetings.
Right.
I think we started meeting in
August
August
12th or
2012,
something.
and probably by December or January we already had the kind of goal in mind. It just seemed like such a nice thing to do, to leave as a legacy to the town. And I know we currently have a couple of people working on a little working group that's trying to help pull this thing together and come up with something we can present to the library board for their consideration and maybe approval.
Yeah, I think if I can make a comment on it, I think it's important to note that we've got not only the 375th Steering Committee people in this, but we've got our Portsmouth Library folks on it, and we've also got the Portsmouth Historical Society involved. So we have a common purpose here.
Yeah.
And hopefully at the end we'll have something that's of terrific value for all the town.
Yeah, I hope so. And you know, there was an article in the Providence Journal a couple days ago about libraries and modern technology and how libraries have to come into the
Absolutely.
current era. One of the things that I think we've sort of added on to this, but I think it relates, is in addition to a history center where we store, a place for the storage and retrieval and study of Portsmouth history, we're looking at developing a small teleconferencing center.
Right.
And this will work out well with our 4 Portsmouth projects, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be something nice. It's kind of our way of helping the library become the center
Right.
for information in the town.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that article that was in the paper not too long ago, about a couple days ago, the Providence Journal, about the libraries, and I think declining circulation is you know, kind of just the trend of the future. I mean, with all the
especially in regular books. I mean,
Right,
a lot of
yeah,
things are
right,
coming out
right.
and
So-
make it much easier.
So the opportunity to make the library like a real center focus for our town, I think, is great. You know.
And so really the bulk of our funds will be going towards that. You know, there may be some seed money left over for guest lecturers or
Right.
things like that to help the library get started the next year. How much have we raised so far? Gary, you have a good handle on that.
Well, I think the total amount, I mean, I don't know that anybody's added up the totals, but I think we've raised, we can say that we've raised more than $25,000 in total. We've got about $20,000 net of all of our expenses so far in the bank right now, and we've got this major fundraiser yet to go, and we've got a lot of other memorabilia that's out in the community.
Yeah.
That will add up to it. So I think we've got $20K more or less right now, and we certainly should expect a little bit more than that as a final check that we provide to the library.
And hopefully we'll find some kind of matching grants from somewhere, the state or another organization.
Yeah, in fact, I think Linda Finn, one of our representatives, has offered to try to go through the legislature to get a $1,000 grant for us, and I think the proposal for how we would use that is currently at the library right now. So
Yeah, great. It'd be great if our
Yeah.
town council would
kick in
come
a
up with
little,
some kind of
yeah.
matching thing.
Well, I mean, if we raised 20 grand as a bunch of volunteers out here, we'd hope maybe. But well, maybe what we should really be doing is going to our representatives and seeing if we
I
can
think it will eventually,
get the
right?
state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should mention, though, that the way we were able to raise that money fairly quickly was because of our special sponsors. We have some key sponsors. They certainly deserve recognition and acknowledgement. Clements Market, for example, was one of our major contributors.
Right.
American Legion Post 18, both of which contributed $5,000 to our fund at the beginning, so we started off with a very good beginning thanks to them. Portsmouth Abbey donated $3,500. We had $1,500 from People's Credit Union, $1,000 each from Newport Fed and Bank Newport, as well as Jim and Dottie Garman, Jim, our town historian, and numerous other donations by individuals and local businesses. And there's a complete list of those on our website, and we owe really a debt of thanks to all those folks.
I think
for
in
helping us
aggregate
out.
there's probably been more than, there's probably close to 100 people, individuals.
Yeah.
Not including, like, for instance, all of the pizzas and everything we got at the first polar dive and all the other wonderful things that people have donated over the course in terms of monetary donations. I think we've got well over 100 individuals that have contributed.
Well, and you know, just so people know, we use some of that money to support events, of course, over the course of the year, but we also use some as seed money to buy 375 memorabilia things such as hats, T-shirts, and also our limited edition 375th medallion ornament to sell and then try to generate more funds. Some of these are still available for sale, and you could help us out and help us reach our, you know, maximize our funding goal by people still purchasing these things. I know it's hard to think of T-shirts in the middle of the winter, but summer will come, I guarantee
if
it.
you're at Clements and you're, they ask you whether you want a paper bag or you brought your own bag, and you just happen to see those T-shirts over there, you could tie one off on the bottom,
There you
and
go.
that could actually be used as a grocery bag.
You know, as far as the library project goes, I don't think we want to see it end December 31st. There are things when we initially planned the year that for reasons one or another never came to fruition. And I think during the year, someone should kind of take charge of some other opportunities that we would have to raise money for this library project. I mean, it shouldn't end December 31st.
Well, I think it'll end as a 375th fund.
Yes.
And
But that's a good idea to continue a kind of a library history fund. You know, I mean, why not?
Yeah, sure, why not? Absolutely.
You know, that's we've got a couple of
but again,
patriotic milk cartons, milk cans.
375th is 1 year. We promised
That's
we'd
right,
do it at the end
absolutely,
of 1
absolutely.
year.
We're disbanding in January.
But the library project shouldn't die December 31st.
And the library project won't die because there will be a couple people from our committee that'll be intimately involved in this going forward. I also want to mention, though, that in addition to those financial donations that people made, we had all kind of in-kind donations from several local businesses. Just to name a few, Greenvale Vineyards, Escobar's Farmhouse Inn, which, by the way, was a tremendous hit with our visitors. The VD Automobile Company, who loaned us cars to drive our visitors around. The limousine service, Leisure Limousine.
Lifesavers, man. They made the trip back on Memorial Day. Memorial Day, pardon me. On Labor Day with the Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayoress, and saved me from having to drive up to Boston. Boy.
Well, and we also had local restaurants and local liquor stores that kicked in things for the reception and other events. So it's been a real community effort, and all the businesses got involved, which I think is great.
Yeah, Greenvale Vineyards. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's so cool we have that vineyard.
We should have a bottle of our 375 wine on display.
Probably wouldn't last long here, though, even in the morning.
Well, no, it's too early.
And also, just to let people know, some of our events actually paid for themselves, things like the reception through ticket sales. It turned out the parade really didn't cost very much. Others required us to use our funds, so that's why there's a little bit of difference between what we've earned and what we have left. But we're going into this year, to end this year as we began it. I think it's very appropriate, kind of bookends. Bob, you're the chairman on this polar dive effort at the end. You were the guy that drove the last one on 1 January and led us all into the briny there. How will this dive compare to the one that we did on January 1st?
Well, the basic difference is we've have this as a pledge drive. We're hoping that the community, those that want to participate in the dive, will take these pledge forms, and if you collect $100 in pledges, you're going to get a nice sweatshirt with the emblem and wording on the back. We're looking for a lot of community support on this because it is something different and something new for us to do anyhow, for me to do, is a pledge drive. We're trying to incorporate the schools, the youngsters. Those are the ones that really get into this wholeheartedly. The beach house has told me that they have a emailing list of 2,000 people that they're going to send it out to.
And the beach house is where we're going to host the after
party.
Right.
Yeah, Kenny O'Brien has been very gracious on that, and looking forward to
Okay,
this
now when
year.
you say a pledge dive, can you explain how that's going to work? Let's say I give you a form. You're interested, you take one of our forms, which I can give you right here, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
This is a pledge form. And I'll give this to you, Bob, and what do you do with it?
Yeah,
You go to
I'll pass
guys
it
like
over.
Gary, right?
You don't have to practice. I'm already in. I'm going to do it. So.
Well, the idea behind the pledge form is that you go out to your friends and neighbors and solicit a donation for them. We call it a pledge, but it's really a donation. And if you collect $100 or more, as I said before, you'll get a nice sweatshirt at the dive. You don't have to make a complete pledge or donation. You can make a personal donation without going out and soliciting
Does the
friends
form
and
let you
neighbors.
choose?
And the form lets you choose.
And so what are the options on the form there that someone has?
Well, the first is that you're doing the dive, and
As an individual,
As
and
an
here's
individual.
your money. Right, yeah.
the second is you're doing the dive, but you just want to make a donation. And the third is an opt-out option. Now, Doug, you're the one that pushes opt-out option, and you're the one that can really explain what your thoughts are on that.
Be delighted to.
Yeah.
And in talking with members of our town council, the realization hit me that these people are really not going to go in the water. Liz Pedro, I think, was the only one that went in the water on 1 January. And so I thought we'd give them an option. This way they can support the dive, support the 375th, support our funding effort without actually getting their feet wet. And to make it even better, anybody that donates more than $100
Gets a sweatshirt.
gets one of these sweatshirts, which we're still in the process of designing.
Right.
So the idea is to give people that like to support us but don't really want to go in the frigid waters of Secundit River on 31 December a way to do that. And I predict that this will be popular, particularly among our town officials.
Yeah, including the school committee. And others,
so
right?
we'll see. I mean, I think
Well,
that'll work.
Don't we, in fact, already have our first taker on that? I mean,
Yes, we did. We had Keith Humphreys, who's already sent a check in for $100.
and saying he's
Opting out.
taking the opt-out option.
So he's the first
And he gets the
sweatshirt.
first sweatshirt, right?
That's right. Well, once we
Absolutely.
design it, Keith is
Absolutely.
coming right to you.
Yeah. I think if I can, I mean, we want to stay on this for a little bit longer because it's our last major opportunity. But I think the other side is we want to make it clear to everyone that you don't have to pledge anything to come join us.
Yeah,
and
anybody
get
can
wet.
join us.
You can come down and dive in the water with us and have fun. If you do a pledge, that's even better. And if you do a big enough pledge, you get a sweatshirt for it. But come on down and join us. It's not just a pledge fund. It's an opportunity to show the strength of our community
Right.
at the end of the year in terms of what we've done.
Okay, now Bob, logistics. Where can people get the pledge forms, and where can they turn them in with their donations?
Okay, the pledge forms will be online on the website, PortsmouthRI375.com, along with a poster. The forms will be distributed throughout the two major schools, the middle school and hopefully the high school, through their blast email, more than likely. We have already support from the high school, from the swim team. It would be great if some of the athletic department
Football, basketball teams.
might get together and to challenge each other.
How about other
form
locations?
Form a team and challenge.
Okay, and they can pick them up at Clements,
And Clements
The library.
Town hall.
Town hall lobby.
Where do they turn
People's
them
Credit
in?
Union.
Okay, now they can be turned into the People's Credit Union. We have it on the bottom of the pledge form that would go to the People's Credit Union. They can call me, which there's a phone number on here. If they need the pledge picked up, we'll be sure that someone picks it up.
They can also send it to our P.O. box.
Send it to our P.O. box.
P.O. Box 921 here in Portsmouth. Portsmouth 375, Steering Committee, P.O. Box 921,
Yep.
0287.
And we've got your telephone number up on the screen, Bob, so people know how to get a hold of you.
Great.
Okay, now, in order to get a sweatshirt, on the day of the dive, what's the latest people can turn in their pledge
We
forms?
need the pledges to be received by December 15th so that the sweatshirts can be printed.
Okay.
And those that do bring them in before December 15th will be able to pick them up at the dive.
Okay,
If you turn your pledge form in at the dive, we will take your name, and when they're manufactured, we'll let you know.
okay.
Right.
Maybe they
They'll
can
be
pick-
available after.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
well, that's great. I'm looking forward to seeing what this thing is going to look like, this sweatshirt. This is a hoodie sweatshirt, you think?
It's one or the other.
Oh, okay. It's either a hooded sweatshirt
Yeah.
or a regular crew
Right.
collar
Crew.
sweatshirt.
Yeah. Crucial.
And we're talking about, the color is probably going to be blue, we think.
Gray,
Or gray, excuse me.
gray.
Okay.
Gray
That's-
blue.
That's right.
Blue and a gray.
bluish gray.
Okay.
Grayish blue.
So we want people to sign up for this thing, to come down and join us, though, at the main thing. There will be an after dive
We
party.
should talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah,
where
and
that's gonna be.
I know at the first one in January, a lot of local businesses, restaurants, and others donated food. The pizza and other stuff was great.
Yeah, we had 15 restaurants that donated either food or beverages, and there was a lot of food there. And I said, "Oh, how are we going to eat all
And
this
was,
food
And,
again,
and
this was where it was at,
at the beach house?"
and that's located on Park
Park
Avenue,
Avenue.
just maybe a block and a half or so east of where we're going in the water,
About
right?
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people
It's well
will be
known.
able to tell because everybody's be going there shivering
Yeah.
to get into the warm.
For people that don't know about the directions around here, we'll be going towards Tiverton, right?
Yeah.
Going towards,
Follow the crowd.
Right.
Yeah, follow the crowd, right.
But this year, we're soliciting the same businesses that donated last year, plus some more that we've
Okay,
accumulated.
So actually, it's a twofer. They can get 2 tax breaks, right? Same year.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I think tax breaks aside, it's still a great thing to do for the
Of course it
community,
is,
and they will
absolutely.
be recognized.
Oh,
We'll have their signs up at the event,
Right.
and they'll also be posted on our website and other things. So,
And then a press release.
yeah, okay, great. What else do we need to talk about the dive itself? Just start looking at these forms and filling them out and getting pledges, right?
Yeah, we'd like to get the pledges in as rapidly as possible, so we have a rough idea what we're going to need in sweatshirts.
Yeah, I think that's a good heads up that we need to do. Let me just, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I'd just like to maybe reflect a little bit on how we've done so far in this 375th. You two guys were in this thing at the very beginning on this steering committee. What do you think? Do you think we've been able to do anything in the community here, or I kind of think we've helped
Yeah, I think
a
so.
little bit.
Oh, definitely.
I think, if I might, I think a couple of things that have become apparent to me over the year here is the difficulty, or the challenges, let's say, in communicating out to
Yeah.
our town. And
right.
we've used every media available, even including going to the state of Rhode Island, getting permission to put that banner up over the top of East Main Road. But it's just been such a challenge
I know.
to get information out there. I
There
mean,
seems to be no one way that you can communicate. with people.
Absolutely. I mean, having our own newspaper and having those articles in it, I think is great. I think now that we're in the 11th month of the year-long celebration, I think people are aware across our town.
Yeah.
But it's taken months and months and months
Yeah.
to get people just aware, and that's caught me flat-footed. I thought there was a far better way of communicating with
Yeah,
our
but I
whole
think
town.
that shows you what our society's like these days.
Absolutely, and I think it's a good indicator to our town officials and everyone else. When we want to do something town-wide, we have to plan early and use every possible media to
Yeah.
get out there.
Yeah, I would say for me, we've exceeded my expectations.
Oh,
at least
absolutely.
I think we've done an awful lot, thanks really in large part to all the steering committee members who did all the hard work. I like to think that our celebration brought the community together a little bit, and we have a better sense of who we are, why we should be proud of who we are. You know, I think the logo, or our theme rather, Proud Heritage, Bright Future, I think describes pretty much where I think we should be, most of us feeling now. And I think the other thing that came out was kind of a connection with these other 4 Portsmouth, and that's going to be going forward.
Right,
so
right.
I want to segue to you, Gary, because that's an important part of what we're going to be doing next year.
Well, and you mentioned a moment ago, I think that if we haven't talked about it in the past, we had an opportunity when all the mayors were here at the gala weekend to talk a little bit about something that would could evolve from where we were with this recognition of our common namesake relationships. So out of that has came this idea of this Portsmouth Atlantic Compact, and essentially all 4 communities have in common on their the same thing in common is on the Atlantic Ocean. So we've kind of identified it as a Portsmouth Atlantic Compact. It's a friendship compact, if you want to call it that, and it's basically a commitment by all 4 communities to work together to promote better constant awareness of each other in terms of educational and cultural opportunities. Maybe down the road, I think we'd like to think that there could be some economic opportunities out of that. But just generally, the idea is to extend what we started here, first through our schools, through some common shared projects like the high schools between New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Virginia, and the United Kingdom, all having a common project. And in fact, you mentioned the idea of a media center at the library. This would be a way to tie all 4 together.
And you know, people might want to know that, for example, we were Skyping with the Lord Mayor of England yesterday afternoon. We had about 3 or 4 of us on there.
Right.
And we've done that in the past with both the Lord Mayor from Portsmouth, but also the Mayor of New Hampshire, of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Eric Spears, a couple of weeks ago. So this whole Skype teleconferencing thing, I think, has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, what we're looking for is something that's got enough viability in it and enough value to the community that it's self-perpetuating. I mean, we're volunteers, and right now we've got plenty of time to stay on it. 30 seconds. If we're successful going out of next year, this will be a live project, and it will be repeating itself every year.
One final note, very quickly, we'll not be taping next week due to the holiday. The crew of Portsmouth this week, Brian Medeiros, Rich Talipsky, Gary Gump, Bob Hamilton, Dave Miller, Ray Keller, and myself would like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. We'll be back on 6 December and hope to have our 2 state reps, Chris Ariano and Jay Edwards, on the show to talk about their work in the Infrastructure Funding Commission. See you then.
To wind up the 375th celebration year, the Portsmouth 375th Committee plans to repeat the event that started the new year at a final dive for 375 at noon on New Year's Eve. The event will be the final activity for the 375th year that has collected donations to fund the section in the Portsmouth Library dedicated to the preservation of Portsmouth history. All people who register to dive or opt out and donate over $100 by December 15th will receive a special final dive for 375 sweatshirt at the dive for each $100 donated. Those who register with their donations after December 15th will receive their sweatshirts at a later date. To join in the fun and get a registration form, go to PortsmouthRI375.com.